6 months later, Jake stood in the same observation deck where this journey had begun, watching Earth grow larger in the viewport. But the planet below was transformed. The blue marble now sparkled with new lights, not just the familiar cities of humanity, but the crystalline structures of the Harmonic Collective, the living gardens of the Plant Alliance, and the ethereal constructions of the Void Dancers. Luna sat beside him on the observation platform, her silver fur now showing subtle patterns that seemed to shift like starlight. Dr. Harper had explained that the quantum bonding process had changed her as much as it had changed the galaxy, making her a living bridge between species and worlds. "Sir, incoming transmission from the surface," Lieutenant Chen announced. "It's from the new Tokyo Integration Center." The holographic display activated, showing Dr. Kim standing in what had once been her research laboratory. Behind her, Jake could see beings from a dozen different species working together on projects that would have been impossible just months earlier. "Commander Morrison, Luna," Dr. Kim greeted them with a warm smile. "Welcome home. The Integration Council is ready for your arrival." The Integration Council was humanity's attempt to govern a world that now hosted representatives from 47 different species. What amazed Jake was how naturally it had all come together. Luna's quantum network didn't just prevent aggressive actions, it facilitated understanding and cooperation in ways that traditional diplomacy never could. "How are our former enemies adjusting?" Jake asked. "Better than expected," Dr. Kim replied. "The Zephyrians who chose to remain on Earth have been particularly helpful. Once their technology stopped supporting conquest, they discovered they're actually quite gifted at cooperative engineering. They've been working with our teams to develop new kinds of quantum communication systems." Luna purred softly, and Jake felt the now familiar sensation of her consciousness touching minds across the planet. Through their bond, he could sense the complex web of relationships that had formed between species that had never imagined peaceful coexistence was possible. As the Endeavour descended through Earth's atmosphere, Jake marveled at the changes visible from orbit. The great cities had expanded, but not through conquest of the natural world. Instead, they had grown in harmony with it, incorporating the architectural philosophies of dozens of species into structures that seemed to blend seamlessly with the landscape. The landing pad in New Tokyo was crowded with beings of every description, all waiting to welcome the ship that had carried humanity's exodus and return. But Jake noticed that they weren't arranged in the formal groups that traditional diplomacy might have required. Instead, they mingled freely, the quantum network allowing instant communication and understanding regardless of species or language barriers. "Sir," Sergeant Torres said as they prepared for disembarkation, "it's been an honor serving with you and Luna. I never imagined when we left Earth that we'd be coming back to a completely different galaxy." Jake picked up Luna, who immediately began purring in the complex harmonic pattern that had become her signature. "The galaxy was always like this," he replied. "We just had to help everyone remember how to listen to each other." As they walked down the ship's ramp, Jake was greeted by Admiral Zhang, now serving as Earth's representative to the Galactic Cooperation Council. Behind him stood beings Jake had only seen in holographic communications. Captain Veltar of the Sylvan Republic, her bark-like skin gleaming with bioluminescent patterns that indicated pleasure and welcome. Prime Resonator Thelvis of the Harmonic Collective, his crystalline form chiming softly in greeting. And even former Supreme Commander Zarthak, his once threatening appearance now somehow peaceful and contemplative. "Commander Morrison," Zarthak said, his voice lacking the cold hostility Jake remembered. "I owe you and Luna an apology that no words can adequately express. My species spent millennia believing that strength came from domination, never understanding that true power lies in connection." Luna jumped down from Jake's arms and approached the former Zephyrian commander. For a moment, the two simply looked at each other, the small Earth cat and the massive alien warrior who had once threatened to destroy her entire species. Then Luna rubbed against Zarthak's lower leg, purring. Through the quantum network, Jake felt the former commander's amazement and gratitude. She forgives me," Zarthak whispered. "After everything my people did, she simply forgives." "That's what family does," Jake said. "And that's what Luna has been trying to teach all of us. We're all family, every species, every world, every life in the galaxy. Dr. Harper approached with her latest research findings. Jake, the quantum network continues to evolve. Luna's influence has now spread to over 300 star systems, and we're detecting responses from species we haven't even made contact with yet. It's as if the galaxy itself is awakening to a new level of consciousness. Luna padded back to Jake and climbed up to her favorite perch on his shoulder. From there, she surveyed the gathering of beings who had once been enemies, and were now friends, allies, and family. Her green eyes held the same intelligence and depth they always had. But now Jake could see something else. A profound satisfaction at a job well done. "Sir," Lieutenant Chen said, approaching with a communication pad, "we're receiving reports from the frontier colonies. The quantum network has reached the edge of known space, and we're making contact with species that have been hiding from galactic civilization for thousands of years. They're all reporting the same thing. They can finally sense that it's safe to come out and join the larger community." Jake looked out over the crowd of beings celebrating humanity's return to Earth, then up at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Each point of light now represented not just a distant sun, but a world full of life that was part of Luna's ever-expanding family. "Admiral," Jake said, "I think our real journey is just beginning." Admiral Zhang nodded, watching as beings from across the galaxy mingled freely in the twilight. The Zephyrians thought they were conquering Earth to build an empire. Instead, they helped us build something much more important, a galactic community where every life has value and every species has a home. Luna purred softly, her quantum consciousness touching minds across the stars, carrying with her the simple message that had always been at the heart of her connection with humanity. Love is stronger than fear. Cooperation is more powerful than conquest, and home is wherever family gathers together. As the first stars appeared in Earth's sky, Jake realized that Luna had given humanity the greatest gift imaginable. Not just survival, but the knowledge that they were never alone. In a galaxy full of wonders and possibilities, the smallest member of their family had taught them the most important lesson of all. The universe was vast enough for everyone, and love was strong enough to connect them all. The surprise that had been waiting for him, a gorgeous cat as his new companion, had become the key to transforming the entire galaxy. And as Luna settled in for another nap on his shoulder, Jake knew that their greatest adventures were still ahead of them, among the stars that were no longer distant points of light but homes filled with friends they had yet to meet. The battle raged for hours, but it was unlike any space combat in recorded galactic history. The human refugee fleet moved with impossible coordination, their makeshift vessels dancing between Zephyrian weapon bursts as if guided by an unseen hand. Luna remained calm throughout, occasionally tilting her head as if listening to voices only she could hear. "Sir, we're receiving communications from across the galaxy," Lieutenant Chen reported, his voice filled with amazement. "Human colonies that have been under Zephyrian occupation are reporting mass system failures in enemy equipment. It's happening everywhere simultaneously." Jake felt Luna's consciousness expand through their bond, and suddenly he could sense human populations across dozens of star systems. Each group was connected to Luna's protective network, each person adding their strength to the collective defense of their species. "Zarthak is trying to retreat," Admiral Zhang announced. "His quantum-shielded vessels are experiencing cascading failures. Whatever Luna is doing, it's affecting technology they claimed was impossible to influence." On the tactical display, Jake watched the mighty Zephyrian war fleet scatter in disarray. Ships that had seemed invincible minutes earlier were now drifting helplessly through space, their crews struggling with systems that responded unpredictably or not at all. But then something unexpected happened. Dr. Harper's voice crackled over the communication system with urgent news. "Jake, I'm detecting something strange. Luna's quantum field is picking up responses from other sources, non-human sources." "What do you mean?" Jake asked, though Luna was already purring in a new pattern that seemed almost like she was having a conversation. "I think other species are responding to Luna's call, species that have also formed symbiotic relationships with their planetary ecosystems. The Zephyrians aren't just fighting humanity. They're fighting against a fundamental principle of how life evolves in the galaxy. As if summoned by Dr. Harper's words, new contacts appeared on the long-range sensors. Ships of unfamiliar design but bearing no hostile intent. Their approach vectors suggested they were coming to assist the human fleet. "This is Captain Veltar of the Sylvan Republic," came a melodious voice over the communication channel. "We have monitored the conflict and offer our aid to the humans and their remarkable companion." Jake looked at Luna, who was now sitting upright with an expression of satisfaction, as if she had been expecting this development. Through their bond, he sensed that she had somehow sent out a call that transcended normal spacetime limitations, a call that reached any species capable of understanding the true nature of cooperative evolution. More ships arrived throughout the next hour, the crystalline vessels of the Harmonic Collective, whose entire civilization was based on the symbiotic relationship between their people and living crystal formations. The bioships of the Garden Worlds Alliance, where plant and animal consciousness had merged into a single cooperative entity. Even the mysterious void dancers who had achieved unity with the quantum fabric of space itself. "Admiral Zhang," Jake said, "I think Luna just formed the first true galactic alliance based on cooperation rather than conquest." The communication channels filled with voices from dozens of species, all sharing a common message. They had spent centuries hiding from aggressive empires like the Zephyrians, but Luna's call had shown them that unity was possible. Supreme Commander Zarthak's final transmission was filled with disbelief and rage. "This is impossible. The galaxy operates on the principle of strength through domination. Cooperation is a weakness that evolution eliminates." "You're wrong," Jake replied, Luna purring softly on his shoulder. "Cooperation is how evolution creates its greatest successes. You just never learned how to listen." The Zephyrian fleet's retreat turned into a rout as their technology continued to fail. But more significantly, reports began coming in from across their empire. Species that had been conquered and enslaved were suddenly finding that their oppressors' control systems no longer functioned. The quantum field effect that Luna had generated was spreading through subspace, affecting any technology used for the purpose of domination and control. "Sir, we're receiving a priority message from Earth," Chen announced. "It's coming from the Zephyrian occupation forces." The holographic display showed a different Zephyrian commander, this one clearly desperate. "Human fleet, we formally request immediate ceasefire and withdrawal negotiations. Our occupation of your homeworld is no longer sustainable." Admiral Zhang smiled for the first time since the evacuation. "What happened to your quantum-shielded technology?" "The systems function normally for defensive and peaceful purposes," the Zephyrian admitted. "But any attempt to use them for conquest or oppression results in immediate failure. Our weapons will not fire on peaceful populations. Our control systems will not respond when used to enslave other species. We cannot maintain our empire under these conditions." Jake felt Luna's satisfaction through their bond. She hadn't just defended humanity, she had fundamentally changed the rules of galactic civilization. Technology itself was now biased toward cooperation and mutual aid. "Admiral," Jake said, "I think Luna wants us to go home." As the combined fleet of allied species set course for Earth, Jake realized that the Zephyrians had accomplished something they never intended. By forcing humanity to leave Earth, they had inadvertently spread Luna's influence throughout the galaxy. Now every species that valued cooperation over conquest was connected through the quantum network she had created. The small cat who had started this journey as a research subject had become the catalyst for a new kind of galactic civilization, one based on the principle that had always made Earth special, the understanding that all life is stronger when it works together. Luna stretched and yawned, then settled down for a nap on Jake's shoulder. She had done what cats had always done best. She had found the perfect spot to watch over her family. The fact that her family now included dozens of species across hundreds of star systems was just a minor detail. The journey home to Earth was about to begin, but Jake knew it wouldn't be the same planet they had left. It would be something better. The capital world of a galactic community built on the simple truth that a small cat had always known. Love is the strongest force in the universe. 3 weeks after Luna began forming bonds throughout the refugee fleet, the first test of her expanded abilities came sooner than expected. The New Horizons sensors detected a massive Zephyrian, Battle group approaching from the Galactic core, ships that bore the distinctive markings of the hegemony's elite assault forces. Fleet composition analysis complete, reported Commander Sarah Liu from the Tactical Center. 12 dreadnoughts, 48 heavy cruisers, and over 200 escort vessels. They're using quantum-shielded technology from their homeworld. Jake stood in the command center with Luna perched on his shoulder, her usual calm demeanor unchanged despite the approaching threat. Over the past weeks, she had bonded with nearly 10,000 humans across the fleet, and the effects were remarkable. Not only had their technological systems become more efficient, but the refugees themselves seemed more focused, more united in purpose. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," Lieutenant Chen announced. "It's on all frequencies directed at the entire fleet." The holographic display activated, revealing a Zephyrian unlike any they had seen before. This one was larger, its chitinous exoskeleton gleaming with biomechanical implants, and its compound eyes held an intelligence that was both ancient and utterly alien. "I am Supreme Commander Zarthak of the Hegemony Primary Fleet," the creature announced in perfect human languages. "You harbor a reality manipulator that threatens the natural order of the galaxy. Surrender the creature immediately, and your species will be granted a swift extinction." Admiral Zhang stepped forward. "This is Admiral Zhang of the Human Refugee Fleet. We don't negotiate with invaders. If you want peace, withdraw from human space immediately." Zarthak's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. "You misunderstand, Admiral. We have studied your pet's abilities extensively. Our new vessels are quantum-isolated, immune to whatever impossible effects the creature generates. Your reality manipulation ends here." Luna shifted on Jake's shoulder, her tail twitching in what he had learned to recognize as her equivalent of rolling up her sleeves. She looked at the holographic Zephyrian with an expression that somehow conveyed both pity and determination. "You still don't understand," Jake said, surprising himself by speaking directly to the alien commander. "Luna isn't manipulating reality. She's revealing what reality actually is. That all life is connected, that cooperation is stronger than conquest, and that love is the most powerful force in the universe." "Philosophical nonsense," Zarthak dismissed. "Prepare to witness true power." The transmission ended, and immediately the tactical displays lit up with incoming threats. The Zephyrian fleet was advancing in perfect formation, their quantum-shielded vessels gleaming like deadly stars against the backdrop of space. All human vessels. "This is Admiral Zhang," came the fleet-wide announcement. "Prepare for defensive maneuvers. Protect the civilian transports at all costs." Jake felt Luna's paw touch his cheek, and suddenly he wasn't just seeing the tactical display, he was feeling the entire human fleet as if it were a single organism. Every ship, every person, every heartbeat connected in a vast network of shared consciousness and purpose. "Admiral," Jake called out, his voice carrying a confidence he hadn't known he possessed. "Request permission to coordinate fleet movements through Luna's network." Zhang looked at him with surprise. "Commander, you're not a fleet tactician." "No, sir, but Luna is connected to everyone. She can coordinate our movements better than any computer system ever could." Before Zhang could respond, the first wave of Zephyrian missiles reached the outer edge of the human formation. Jake watched in amazement as the refugee ships began moving in perfect harmony, each vessel anticipating the movements of others with impossible precision. Ships that had never flown together before were executing maneuvers like a synchronized dance. "Sir, this is impossible," Commander Liu reported. "Our pilots are reporting they're not making these course corrections themselves. It's as if they know instinctively where to go." Luna purred softly, and Jake realized what was happening. She wasn't just coordinating the fleet. She was helping every human pilot access a deeper level of intuition and connection. They were flying not as individual ships, but as a single, unified organism. The Zephyrian weapons fire, calculated for conventional human flight patterns, passed harmlessly through space as the refugee ships moved with fluid grace between the energy beams. "Impossible," came Zarthak's voice over the communication channel. "Our tactical computers cannot predict your movements." "That's because you're thinking like machines," Jake replied. "We're flying like family." The human fleet, composed mostly of converted civilian ships and improvised weapons, should have been no match for the Zephyrian war fleet. But as Luna's influence spread, something extraordinary began to happen. The refugee engineers found themselves making impossible improvements to their systems. Weapons that should have been ineffective suddenly became precisely targeted. Shields that should have failed held strong against overwhelming firepower. Dr. Harper's voice came through the communication system from her research vessel. "Jake, I'm reading quantum fluctuations unlike anything in our scientific literature. Luna isn't just affecting our technology, she's helping us tap into potentials that were always there. Every human in the fleet is performing beyond their normal capabilities." On the tactical display, Jake watched as human ships that had been retreating suddenly began advancing. But this wasn't a reckless charge. It was a carefully orchestrated movement that took advantage of every weakness in the Zephyrian formation. Luna meowed once, a sound that somehow reached every human in the fleet simultaneously. In that instant, Jake felt the fears and doubts of 50,000 refugees transform into something else entirely. Absolute determination to protect not just themselves, but every form of life that had ever known the love of the small blue planet they once called home. The Zephyrians, for all their advanced technology and military precision, had never encountered anything like this. They fought as individuals, following orders and tactical algorithms. The humans fought as a family, each ship willing to sacrifice itself to protect the others. But more than that, they fought with the blessing of every species that had ever formed a bond with humanity. In Luna's purr, Jake could hear the voices of every dog that had ever guarded a human home, every horse that had ever carried a human rider, every creature that had ever looked at a human and seen not a master, but a friend. The battle for humanity's future had truly begun, and the Zephyrians were about to learn that they weren't just fighting a refugee fleet. They were fighting the combined spirit of an entire planet that had learned to love. The refugee fleet's flagship, New Horizon, was a massive converted colony ship that now served as the temporary capital of humanity in exile. As Jake and Luna were escorted through its corridors, Jake couldn't help but notice the mixture of hope and desperation in the faces around him. Children played in makeshift recreation areas while their parents worked frantically to establish new lives among the stars. Admiral Zhang met them in the main conference room, accompanied by Dr. Elizabeth Harper, humanity's foremost expert on xenobiology, and General Marcus Webb, the senior military strategist for the refugee fleet. "So this is our secret weapon," Dr. Harper said, studying Luna with professional fascination. "She's remarkable. I can actually feel something when I'm near her, a sense of calm that I haven't experienced since the evacuation began." Luna sat regally on the conference table, her tail swishing slowly as she examined each person in the room. When her gaze settled on Admiral Zhang, she meowed once, a sound that somehow conveyed both greeting and assessment. "The intelligence reports are still coming in," General Webb said, pulling up holographic displays. "Every Zephyrian vessel within a 50 light-year radius of Earth experienced total system failure. Their entire invasion fleet is stranded, but more importantly, the effect seems to be spreading." "Spreading how?" Jake asked. "We're receiving reports from human colonies throughout the sector. Zephyrian forces that were occupying or threatening our settlements have suddenly found themselves defenseless. It's as if their technology simply stopped working in the presence of human populations." Dr. Harper leaned forward, her scanner detecting quantum fluctuations around Luna. "I think I understand what's happening. Luna isn't just producing localized effects. She's somehow creating a quantum resonance field that affects Zephyrian technology across vast distances." "But how is that possible?" Admiral Zhang asked. "The bond," Dr. Kim explained, joining the conversation via hologram from her temporary laboratory. "Luna doesn't just bond with individual humans. She bonds with humanity as a species. Every human she's ever interacted with becomes part of her extended pack. When humans are threatened anywhere, she responds to protect all of them." Luna patted across the table to where Jake was sitting and rubbed against his arm. As she did, Jake felt a strange sensation, as if he could sense the locations of other humans throughout the galaxy, all connected by invisible threads of shared purpose and mutual protection. "There's something else," and General Webb continued. "We've been monitoring Zephyrian communications, and their leadership is in complete chaos. They're calling Luna's effects impossible magic and emotional contamination. They literally can't comprehend how a small Earth animal could neutralize their entire military infrastructure. That's because they don't understand the power of symbiotic evolution," Dr. Harper explained. "For millions of years on Earth, different species evolved together, forming complex relationships that benefited everyone involved. Humans and cats, humans and dogs, humans and horses. These partnerships made both species stronger. Jake scratched Luna behind the ears, and she purred in response. The Zephyrians see cooperation as weakness because they've never experienced it. They conquered other species instead of partnering with them. Which brings us to our next challenge, Admiral Zhang said grimly. Long-range sensors show that the Zephyrian High Command is mobilizing their reserve fleets. They're bringing in technology from their homeworld, systems that might be resistant to Luna's effects. They're also issuing galaxy-wide communications, General Webb added. They're calling humans reality manipulators and claiming we pose an existential threat to galactic order. Other species are starting to take notice. Dr. Harper studied her readings again. Luna's abilities are incredible, but they're not unlimited. The quantum resonance field requires enormous energy, and that energy comes from her bond with human consciousness. The stronger the emotional connection, the more powerful her defensive capabilities become. Jake looked around the room at the faces of humanity's leaders. What are you asking me to do? We're asking you to help Luna form bonds with other humans throughout the fleet, Admiral Zhang explained. If Dr. Harper's theory is correct, the more humans Luna connects with, the stronger her protective field becomes. But there's a risk, Dr. Kim added via hologram. Luna wasn't designed to bond with this many humans simultaneously. The psychological strain could be overwhelming for her. Jake looked down at Luna, who was watching him with those brilliant green eyes. For a moment, he felt as if she was looking directly into his soul, understanding not just his words, but his deepest concerns for humanity's future. Luna meowed once, a sound that somehow conveyed absolute determination and trust. She's willing to try, Jake said, though he wasn't sure how he knew that. But we do this carefully. Luna isn't just a weapon, she's family, and humans protect their family. Over the next several hours, Jake and Luna began visiting different sections of the refugee fleet. In the children's areas, Luna would sit patiently while young humans petted her soft fur, her presence calming their fears about the uncertain future. In the engineering sections, she would watch the technicians work, occasionally purring in a way that seemed to help them focus on complex problems. With each interaction, Jake could feel the network growing stronger. Luna wasn't just bonding with individuals, she was weaving connections between humans who had never met, creating a web of shared consciousness that spanned the entire fleet. The Zephyrians had made a fundamental mistake. They assumed that conquering Earth would break humanity's spirit. Instead, they had united humanity with a purpose stronger than any they had ever known: the protection of every life, no matter how small that had ever called Earth home. As Luna curled up in Jake's quarters that night, her purring resonating through the ship's hull, Jake realized that the real war was just beginning. But for the first time since the evacuation, he felt hope. Humanity wouldn't just survive among the stars, they would thrive, carrying with them the wisdom of a small cat who understood that true strength came not from conquest, but from connection. The escape from Earth's surface proved more challenging than expected. As the Endeavour lifted off from the research station, Zephyrian patrol ships immediately detected their heat signature and began pursuit. 3 contacts closing fast, Martinez reported, his hands dancing across the controls. They're jamming our communications and trying to get a weapons lock. Jake strapped himself into the command chair, Luna secured an especially designed carrier beside him. The cat remained remarkably calm despite the ship's violent maneuvering, her intelligent eyes watching the tactical displays as if she understood the danger they faced. "Sir, incoming transmission from the lead Zephyrian vessel," Lieutenant Chen announced. "Put it through." The holographic display activated, revealing the insectoid features of a Zephyrian commander. Its compound eyes glittered with cold calculation as it spoke in perfect, emotionless English. "Human vessel, you have violated the terms of the evacuation agreement. Surrender immediately or be destroyed." Jake leaned forward. "This is Commander Morrison of the Earth vessel Endeavour. We were conducting a humanitarian rescue operation. Our mission is complete and we're leaving your space." The Zephyrian's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "Humanitarian? Our sensors indicate you retrieved a single small life form. You risked the lives of 50,000 humans for one insignificant animal?" "Every life has value," Jake replied firmly. "Something your species apparently doesn't understand. Emotion clouds judgment," the Zephyrian commander stated. "This is why humanity will never achieve true galactic dominance. You waste resources on the weak and useless." At that moment, Luna made a sound unlike anything Jake had heard before. A low, almost subsonic rumble that seemed to resonate through the ship's hull. The tactical displays flickered, and for a brief instant, Jake could have sworn he saw patterns in the static that looked almost like star charts. "Sir, something's happening to their ships," Torres reported in amazement. "Their weapon systems are powering down." On the display, the Zephyrian commander's compound eyes widened in what appeared to be shock. "Impossible. How did you penetrate our network security?" Jake looked down at Luna, who was now sitting calmly in her carrier, grooming her paw as if nothing unusual had happened. "We didn't do anything to your systems." Detecting massive energy fluctuations from the lead Zephyrian vessel, Williams called out. "Their entire electronics grid is destabilizing." The transmission cut to static as the 3 alien ships began drifting helplessly through space, their running lights flickering erratically. "What just happened?" Dr. Vasquez asked, checking her readings again. Dr. Kim, who had been silent during the exchange, suddenly spoke up. "I think Luna happened. The genetic modifications weren't limited to intelligence and bonding capabilities. The original project specifications included something called quantum consciousness integration." "Meaning what exactly?" Jake asked. "We weren't entirely sure. The theoretical framework suggested that at sufficient stress levels, Luna might be able to interface with quantum-based systems through some form of bioelectric field generation. We thought it was too speculative to be real." Jake stared at the small cat, who was now purring contentedly as she watched the stars through the viewport. "You're telling me she can disable alien technology just by thinking about it?" "Not exactly thinking," Dr. Kim corrected. "More like responding to threat stimuli with a quantum-level defensive mechanism. The Zephyrians were threatening her human companions, so she neutralized the threat." Lieutenant Chen looked up from his console. "Sir, we're receiving a priority transmission from the refugee fleet." "Admiral Zhang wants to speak with you immediately." Jake's stomach tightened. Admiral Zhang was the senior military commander for the evacuation fleet. If he was calling personally, it meant Jake's unauthorized rescue mission had created serious problems. "Put him through." Admiral Zhang's weathered face appeared on the screen, his expression unreadable. "Commander Morrison, I understand you decided to conduct an unauthorized mission to Earth's surface." "Yes, sir. I take full responsibility for the decision. I also understand that somehow during this mission, you managed to disable 3 Zephyrian patrol vessels without firing a shot." Jake glanced at Luna, then back at the Admiral. "That's correct, sir." Zhang leaned back in his chair. "Commander, in 20 minutes, every ship in the Zephyrian fleet lost power simultaneously. Their entire invasion force is currently drifting dead in space. Our long-range sensors show similar effects spreading to their supporting fleets in nearby systems." The bridge fell silent. Jake felt Luna's paw touch his hand through the carrier's mesh, and suddenly he understood. The threat hadn't just been to the humans on his ship. It had been to all of humanity. Luna had responded accordingly. "Sir," Jake said carefully, "I think we may have just discovered humanity's secret weapon." Admiral Zhang nodded slowly. "Commander, you and your special passenger are hereby ordered to report to the flagship immediately. It seems we have a war to win." As the Endeavor set course for the refugee fleet, Jake realized that the Zephyrians had made a critical error. They had assumed that humans were weak because they formed emotional attachments to other species. They never considered that those bonds might be the source of humanity's greatest strength. Luna curled up in her carrier, her soft purring filling the bridge with a sense of calm purpose. She had chosen her human, and through him she had chosen to protect all of humanity. The galaxy was about to learn that Earth's children didn't fight alone. They fought with the combined strength of every species that had ever called the blue planet home. The Endeavor descended through Earth's atmosphere like a ghost, its stealth system straining against the Zephyrian sensor sweeps. Jake watched the tactical display as enemy patrol ships crisscrossed the sky above New Tokyo, their search patterns methodical and thorough. "Atmospheric entry complete," whispered Pilot Martinez. "Maintaining radio silence. Enemy contacts are maintaining standard patrol routes." Through the viewports, Jake could see the city below. New Tokyo had been humanity's crown jewel, a sprawling metropolis where ancient traditions merged seamlessly with cutting-edge technology. Now it lay dark and empty, its streets littered with abandoned vehicles and the debris of hasty evacuation. Sir, I'm detecting movement in Sector 7, reported Sensors Operator Williams. Zephyrian ground troops approximately 2 clicks from the research station. Jake studied the display. The aliens moved in precise formations, their 6-legged forms scuttling through the streets with mechanical efficiency. The Zephyrians were known throughout the galaxy for their cold logic and absolute dedication to order. They saw emotional attachments as weaknesses to be eliminated. Landing zone is clear, Martinez announced, but we'll have maybe 30 minutes before the next patrol sweep. The Endeavour touched down in the research station's main courtyard, her landing thrusters barely whispering against the concrete. Jake grabbed his gear and headed for the airlock, followed by Dr. Elena Vasquez, the ship's chief medical officer, and Sergeant Mike Torres, a former Earth Defense Force Marine. The research station's main building loomed before them, its biosecure laboratories and animal habitats now eerily silent. Emergency lighting cast long shadows across the pristine hallways, and Jake could hear the faint hum of life support systems still functioning on backup power. Dr. Kim. Dr. Patel? Jake called out as they entered the main laboratory complex. His voice echoed off the sterile walls. Here, came a tired voice from deeper in the facility. They found Dr. Kim in the large animal habitat section, her usually immaculate lab coat stained and wrinkled. She was sitting beside a reinforced habitat enclosure, speaking softly to something inside. Commander Morrison, thank God, she said, rising to her feet. I wasn't sure anyone would receive the message. Where's Dr. Patel? Torres asked, his weapon ready as he scanned the corridors. He left 2 hours ago on one of the last civilian shuttles, Dr. Kim explained. I convinced him I could handle the final procedures alone. I couldn't bear the thought of leaving her. Jake approached the habitat enclosure and looked inside. What he saw made him stop in his tracks. The creature was definitely feline, but unlike any cat he had ever seen. She was larger than a typical house cat, with sleek silver fur that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. Her eyes were a brilliant green, but there was something in them, an intelligence that was almost human-like in its depth and awareness. Meet Luna, Dr. Kim said softly. Luna 7 technically, but she's always just been Luna to us. The cat approached the front of the enclosure, studying Jake with those incredible eyes. When she meowed, the sound was unlike any cat vocalization he had ever heard. More complex, almost musical. The genetic modifications were extensive, Dr. Kim explained as Dr. Vasquez ran her scanner over the enclosure. Enhanced intelligence, improved physical capabilities, extended lifespan, and most importantly, an enhanced capacity for emotional bonding with humans. She was designed to be the perfect companion for long-duration space missions. What makes her so special? Jake asked, though he was already beginning to sense the answer. There was something about the way Luna looked at him, as if she understood not just his words but his intentions. Traditional Earth cats were already remarkable for their ability to provide emotional support to humans, Dr. Kim continued. But Luna's modifications allow her to form bonds that go far beyond typical pet relationships. She can sense human emotional states, provide comfort during psychological stress, and even assist with certain tasks. In isolation, humans need more than just companionship. They need connection. Luna approached the spot where Jake was standing and placed her paw against the transparent barrier. Without thinking, Jake placed his hand on the other side, matching her gesture. Sir, Torres interrupted urgently. We need to move. I'm picking up Zephyrian communications. They're conducting a detailed sweep of this sector. Dr. Kim quickly opened the enclosure and Luna stepped out with fluid grace. She looked around at the group of humans, then walked directly to Jake and rubbed against his leg, purring. She's chosen you, Dr. Kim said with a smile. That's remarkable. Usually it takes days for her to warm up to new people. Jake knelt down and carefully picked up Luna. She was heavier than he expected, with powerful muscles beneath her soft fur. As he held her, he felt an immediate sense of calm wash over him, the kind of peace he hadn't experienced since the invasion began. Sir, we really need to go, Torres pressed. As they hurried back toward the ship, Jake found himself wondering if the Zephyrians had any idea what they were destroying. Earth wasn't just another planet. It was home to countless species that had evolved alongside humanity, forming bonds that transcended simple biology. Luna nestled comfortably in his arms, her green eyes alert and watchful. Somehow, Jake knew that this small creature would prove to be more significant than anyone could imagine. In a galaxy where most species saw strength only in conquest and domination, perhaps humanity's greatest asset was their ability to form unbreakable bonds with other living beings. The Zephyrians were about to discover that they hadn't just conquered a planet, they had made an enemy of every species that called Earth home. Commander Jake Morrison stood at the observation deck of the starship Endeavour, watching the swirling blue and green marble of Earth shrink behind them. The evacuation had been successful, but barely. The Zephyrian invasion fleet had given humanity just 72 hours to abandon their homeworld before the orbital bombardment began. All civilian transports have cleared the atmosphere. Commander, reported Lieutenant Chen from the bridge. We're the last ship out. Jake nodded, his jaw tight with suppressed anger. 300 years of space exploration, and humanity had finally encountered a species that saw them as nothing more than pests to be exterminated. The Zephyrians claimed Earth's location was perfect for their new colonial outpost. They didn't care that billions of humans called it home. The evacuation had been chaotic. Families separated, belongings abandoned, entire civilizations packed into cargo holds. But they had saved everyone they could. Almost everyone. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the surface, Chen called out. It's automated, coming from the new Tokyo Biological Research Station. Jake frowned. The research station had been evacuated days ago. Put it through. The holographic display flickered to life, showing Dr. Sarah Kim's worried face. Her image was grainy, obviously pre-recorded. If anyone receives this message, please know that we couldn't evacuate all the test subjects. The transportation restrictions meant we could only take essential personnel and critical research data. I'm staying behind with my assistant, Dr. Patel, to care for the remaining animals until the last possible moment. Jake's heart sank. Dr. Kim was one of Earth's leading xenobiologists, specializing in the study of Earth animals that might adapt to alien environments. Her work had been crucial in helping humans establish colonies on other worlds. There's one subject in particular, Dr. Kim continued, her voice breaking slightly. Subject designation Luna 7. She's a genetically enhanced feline, bred for deep space companionship missions. Her intelligence is remarkable, and her bond with humans is unlike anything we've documented. If there's any way to retrieve her. The message cut to static. Jake stared at the empty hologram for a long moment. The Zephyrian fleet was already in Earth's orbit. In 12 hours, they would begin bombardment. Every minute they delayed meant risking the lives of 50,000 refugees aboard the Endeavour. Commander? Lieutenant Chen's voice was carefully neutral. Orders, sir? Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. These weren't career military officers. They were colonists, scientists, engineers, ordinary people who had stepped up when humanity needed them most. They had families on this ship, children who would grow up among the stars because their homeworld was being stolen from them. But that's what made humans different from species like the Zephyrians. Humans didn't abandon their own, not even the smallest and most vulnerable members of their family. Set course for the research station, Jake commanded. Maximum stealth approach. Sir, the Zephyrian patrol ships will detect us long before we reach the surface, Chen protested. And even if we make it down, their ground forces have already begun securing strategic locations. Then we'll have to be very careful, won't we? Jake turned to face his crew. I know what I'm asking. We're risking everything for one small animal, but that animal represents something the Zephyrians will never understand about humanity. We don't measure the worth of a life by its size or species. We protect those who depend on us, no matter the cost. The bridge fell silent. Then slowly, nods of agreement rippled through the crew. Besides, Jake added with a grim smile, Dr. Kim said this cat was bred for deep space missions. Something tells me we're going to need all the help we can get in the years ahead. As the Endeavour changed course toward Earth's surface, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that this rescue mission would prove more significant than any of them realized. In the vast galaxy filled with species that saw strength only in conquest and domination, humanity's greatest weapon might just be their refusal to leave anyone behind. The Zephyrians were about to learn that humans didn't just fight for territory or resources. They fought for family, and family meant every soul under their protection, no matter how small, how seemingly insignificant, or how many legs it walked on. Luna 7 was waiting for them somewhere in the ruins of Earth's greatest city, and Commander Jake Morrison was determined that no human would ever have to look back on this day with the regret of abandoning those who trusted them.